From 7 years as a yogi monk, I discovered that meditation techniques unintentionally keep you caught in a cycle of self-improvement. By trying to achieve this, we reinforce the idea that there's something wrong with us, and that is the trap we get stuck in. In the following 40 years, I ran over 200 meditation retreats showing thousands of people how to get out of this trap. Today, I'll be sharing my unique understanding of how you too can get out. Until you understand this, you'll stay stuck in the cycle of trying to fix and improve.
If you've been practicing a technique-based meditation, I don't want you to take on what I'm saying as though I'm saying you're doing something wrong. It's not your fault. The trickiness of thought is immense, actually. And you're just doing what you've been taught to do from people that you've trusted, that you assume and believe know what they're talking about. And then the danger of that is that once you take on an instruction from someone in applying an ideology or a technique to somehow alter the way it feels to be you, is that you always achieve altering the way it feels to be you. And so you think it's worked. But by altering the way it feels to be you, you've falsified yourself. You're altering yourself only because you do not and have not for yourself discovered the significance and the importance of being the way you naturally are. Not changing that, but learning how to live with that. Changing your experience is problematic in that you are suppressing that which is already going on, and you're artificially imposing, through thinking, another experience, another thought-induced experience. And an experience which is not you, not coming from you, but induced by what you've learnt from outside of yourself. It's the very reason that we're confused, the very reason that we don't have our own sense of ourself. And we end up with no sense of ourself at all with using techniques. Rather, we end up with a fabricated state, and through the repetition of that fabricated state, it simply becomes more and more familiar. And it may be a state we enjoy. I know that when I was a monk, it was probably in one sense, it was the happiest time of my life, between the age of about 18 and 27. I absolutely thrived in it. But I didn't understand what I was doing. I didn't understand because I was green, I was new to it. And most of you who are listening will not really understand, even if you've been meditating for 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, if you've been using a technique and you're still using it, this indicates you haven't realized the harm this is doing to you, and that it's actually taking you away from yourself as you are, which is actually the only reality of you there is. And your ideas that there are better ways to be than the way you are leads you to apply a technique or an ideology to change yourself to be a better person from the point of view of that ideology, or the point of view of your own desires to not feel whatever distresses or pains or disturbances that led you to searching for a better way to be. But you see, the better way to be is an escape from reality, from the reality of how you actually are. And you can't get to how you are when you form a conclusion and apply that conclusion through the techniques of meditation to being in a different way, to the way you would be if you weren't using that technique on a repetitive and ongoing basis. What I'm sharing here is absolutely unique. It's my own discovery, and it's something that happened automatically of its own volition, not something that I applied to myself. But in fact, it was what I was applying to myself as a monk that eventually caused an eruption, or I don't know if that's what caused it actually, but eventually my natural system, the body of me, fought back. Having so many ideas and so many techniques being imposed on the and causing fabrications of experiences and sensations throughout this body which simply aren't natural to it, that didn't allow the natural recovery from the effects of life prior to being a monk and for the effects of life during being a monk to actually occur. And really, this is really overlooking the most important thing, is that to really understand yourself as you are, you have to go into the areas of yourself that you are most ignorant about. And the areas we are all most ignorant about are our painful areas. And the reason we are the most ignorant about the painful areas of ourself is because we spend our whole life avoiding them, denying them, suppressing them, trying to get away from them, and trying to fabricate states or find ways of being other than in pain. And so consequently, we don't spend time in the experience, in the feelings of those disturbances and pain, and never come to understand them. So they remain a mystery to us. And on top of that, all the healers of the world, the medical, the therapists, whether it's traditional medicines, allopathic medicines, whatever it happens to be, they're busy trying to fix you, trying to change the way you are as well. So religion and medicine are just interested in changing us from what we are in our own state, which is the result of what we've been through in our life, into something which we aren't. And so this is, in both cases, religion, philosophies, or medicine, this is just escapism. And we never get to understand the true nature and significance of the pain or distress that happens to be in the body of us, and the so-called bad ways in which we think and behave. So with the natural meditation of the body, what occurs if we stop applying any ideas. So I'm not teaching anybody anything. I am just showing you how to find everything out for and from yourself. And the only place you will find yourself is on the inside of you, not outside of you. How do we get to that? What's keeping us from that is however we have learned to think about ourselves. And we've learned to think about ourselves from the perspective of being good or bad, or right or wrong, higher and lower. And these are just ideologies again. These are just cultural belief systems. And these are the result of ignorance to the deeper nature of ourselves, especially when we're in pain or distress. So whatever has occurred during our life has had varying effects on us. Trauma, massive trauma, can be so much of an effect that we literally divide ourselves in the sense of our memories of ourself. So all of our memories of ourself, of the story of our life, are there, but much of that has been either suppressed or denied or forgotten, and they're the parts that we found impossible to deal with and process at the time. But only the cognitive memory is suppressed during our life, never the felt memory. And that's why after we've been affected, we have changed in the sense of how it feels to be us. So the cognitive memory may not be there, but the felt memory in the body is there. So the body doesn't lie. And the body isn't interested in changing itself into something better. It's only interested in responding and resolving whatever is there in the first place. So what is the significance of any pain or distress in the body is that this results in the way you are today as a person. The way you are today as a person is very important, because the way you are today as a person is the result of all the unresolved effects of your life. All of the unresolved effects of your life are the accumulation of what you've had imposed on you, either through education, through indoctrination, through religion, through spirituality, through various meditation techniques, or the more, I wouldn't say more serious form of harm, but what society would consider more serious forms of harm, of actual abuse throughout your life, actual sexual or physical abuse or mental abuse throughout your life. But as far as the body is concerned, belief systems and imposing beliefs upon a young person is actually a form of abuse, because all of these forms of abuse, what actually makes abuse is that it changes you from what you were born as. It changes you from what you really originated as. It changes you from what you really are into the result of that abuse. And so anything that has changed you from what you really are, in the sense of falsified you, distorted you, damaged you, made it uncomfortable or impossible for you to live as the natural person you were born, at ease with all of your natural sensations, from sexuality through to anger, through to calmness, through to happiness, through to emptiness, through to loss, through to grief, all the natural sensations that every single one of us will experience over and over again throughout our life. When we are damaged in any of these areas, or taught ideologies that prevent us from simply accepting each and every event of life and feeling the effect it has on us, we can't get over anything. If you believe in reincarnation, which is a religious belief system, then you use this to avoid the actual effects of a friend dying, which is your loss, your grief. And if you don't feel that, the reason you won't feel that with a belief system is you keep kidding yourself and indoctrinating yourself over and over again anytime you feel a bit of sadness or a bit of grief into, oh, they've gone to a better place, or some other nonsense that you really don't know at all, but you've chosen to believe it. And so in this sense, belief is harmful, because without that belief, you're just left with your loss. And if you feel your loss or feel your grief, not think about it, not emotionalize it, not dramatize it, but feel it as the physical sensation that is in your body, then you'll discover what it really means to meditate. When you are just feeling whatever sensation is going on in the living body of you, you are in touch with the process of recovery from that feeling, from feeling that way, from the effects of life along the way. And so this natural meditation of the body harbours no belief systems, no ideologies, no possibility for delusion. Whereas Buddhism, Christianity, all spirituality is made up of delusions, made up of ideas and ways to avoid the way you are, to not be the way you are, to control the way you are, the ways in which have been determined by these systems to be wrong. And on top of that, what's imposed is an idea and a practice of how to be the way you're supposed to be. So it's a total suppression followed by a fabrication, or the combination of both tend to go on continuously throughout the life of any religious, spiritual or meditative person. And this is a confusion. The problem is not the way we are. The problem is our thought-induced mental reactions to the way we are. You don't suffer sadness. You only suffer your complaint about being sad. But if you let yourself feel sad, it's a relief to feel that. You don't actually suffer any physical or psychological pain. You suffer your reactions to that. You don't actually suffer any experience of yourself, your authentic, natural self as it actually is. You suffer your attempts to try and not be natural, to try and not be the way you are. You harm yourself by your judgments and criticisms and fears of these natural sensations. Whereas if you can just feel the sensations as they are, to know those sensations as they are requires that there are no thought descriptions, opinions or attitudes of right, wrong, good or bad, better or worse. None of these attitudes or ideologies can be in place. If they are, you will change the way you're feeling by imposing those ideas and never understand any of the ways in which you feel as they are before changed by those ideas. And we are just a living organism. We know our existence because we feel the sensations of our existence. We feel the sensations of our understanding, of our knowing. We don't think what we know. We know what we know because we feel it in our body. We feel it when we're hungry. We feel it when we're sad. We feel it when we're itchy. We feel it when we're cold. We feel it when we're hot. And this is the only way we can know anything. You can't know anything of the living experience of yourself through thinking, because thinking is a disassociated, disconnected state. It is not harboring within it any, it doesn't capture within it any sense of the living at all. It's a dead thing. The word sadness doesn't contain a feeling of sadness. The word sensation does not contain what we know to be a sensation. What we know to be a sensation is a physical live experience of our own existence. And that's something that you know as well as I know. We all know this equally. So bringing it back to the body, we come back to the common denominator of us all, and bringing it back to our pain, which is important because this is what we're always trying to get away from. And this keeps us ignorant as to the true nature and the significance of any pain or distress in the body. And the true nature of it is this is our opportunity to feel it and thereby resolve, purge and heal the effects of whatever has affected us in life, leaving us free of those effects, meaning whether it's the effects of beliefs, which is harmful, the effects of indoctrination, which is harmful, the effects of abuse, which is harmful, any effect that has left us changed in how it feels to be us and unable to be at ease with ourselves however we are. However we are. That effect is resolved through feeling our discomfort with being ourselves until that discomfort with being ourselves completely resolves itself just by feeling it as it is in the body of us. Now that brings about a recovery of our original state, of exactly how we were when we were born. When I say exactly, I mean that in relevance to we were completely whole. We're born whole. We're born sensitive. Our sensory nature, our sensory abilities are super heightened up until the time we learn to think. And then when we learn to think, we're taught what to think. We're taught what to think about ourselves, which we start to think about ourselves, and these are not even our thoughts. They're not thoughts about us. They're what our parents, our teachers, the religions, or the cultures of the world have actually told us we're supposed to think. So we think these ways about ourselves, and we criticize ourselves as we've been taught to, according to that religion or that culture. And we praise ourselves as we've been taught to, according to that religion or culture. And that way of thinking about ourselves, as we've been taught to think about ourselves, induces a completely distorted and perverted experience of what it really feels like to be us. And we no longer can feel ourselves as we are. We're only left with the states that have been induced through the imposing of these ideas on ourselves. And we don't like that. And we think we don't like ourselves because we think that's us, but that's not us. That's what we're experiencing, but that's not us. That's the result of our thinking. And that thinking is harmful. And that is why we don't like being us. But that's not us. We haven't begun to experience us as we truly are until we stop thinking about ourselves and drop beneath that thinking into the actual self-evident, automatic, continual movement of the living sensation of being whatever it is we are. Not who we are, what we are. And what we are is what we were born as, a living organism. And when you come back into the sensations of yourself, you discover you were never really away from them. You never really escaped them in the first place. You just disconnected and disassociated and detached yourself from them. And coming back to the body alone, just sitting still, not using any technique at all. The body-based meditation is the realization that the mind is nothing more than an activity of thinking, and that thinking is nothing more than an image. So neither the mind nor the images of thought actually exist. They are just the off-gassing of the sensations from which they arise in the body, of the feelings from which they come into being from the body. So this activity of thinking, which we label as a mind, is very confusing, because when we use that label of a mind, we actually think there's someone or something there that's doing the thinking, but the body is doing the thinking. It's just because we've so disconnected from the body of us, we've lost this innate understanding and direct experience of exactly how the body thinks, how the body itself produces all of our thinking. And it starts as a sensation. A sensation is a pocket or a mass of information that we have picked up through our senses from the world outside of us, or that has been inside of us and accumulated inside of us throughout our life. And that sensation is the memory of our life, including the information of our life today. And the information of our life today is the stimulus to us from life outside of us, which produces our response to that stimulus. That's all a sensory interaction. But as the sensations form into feelings and expressions of those sensations, they form into the words, into the thoughts, and then the words and the actions. Or they just form into the thoughts. And then the thoughts come to their own end, because the thoughts are the smoke from the fire of life that you are. So when you meditate with some understanding of what I've just been saying, what I would ask you to do for you to discover the reality of what I've been talking about for and from yourself almost immediately, so you don't have to believe me. Just try this. And that is, just sit physically still and don't do anything, which means don't apply any ideas, any thoughts, any reactions to the way it feels in the body of you. Whatever you feel like internally, whether there's pain, whether there's disturbance, whether there's calmness, whatever it is, just be with the feeling of that. Now that feeling is not something you're producing, is it? That I'm wanting you to connect with is that the condition in which you currently are. And when you sit there, you get in touch with the body of you. Don't drift off into your thinking. Don't produce experiences through your fabrications of meditation. This is just an escape from the reality of you. Just come back. Just be with. And when you come back to the sensations, you realize you've never left them. You just thought you had because you became so involved in your thinking. But the sensation of you is going to be there, has been there, and will always be there as long as you are alive. So being with that sensation, being inside yourself, is the only place you ever really are. There is no way to be outside yourself. You just implode into a thought about yourself until you disassociate and disconnect from the living organism that you are. And you think you're outside of yourself in some imaginary experience. But even the imaginary experience is inside yourself. It just feels like you're outside it because that's what you've chosen to imagine. That's the idea that you started with in your process of imagining. And so you can actually take that idea to such an extent that you feel as though the idea is all there is to you. But it's not even you, and it's not happening outside of the body of you. It's happening because of the body of you. So when you sit still, you'll notice, and most meditators become upset with this to begin with, simply because they haven't had any understanding of what's going on. When they're sitting to meditate and there's all this random thinking occurring, so they try to apply techniques to suppress or alter that random thinking to control their thinking. But you don't really know why you're thinking, why there is all this random overthinking. It's absolutely essential that you let that happen. Because as that happens, there's only one reason why it's happening, and that is because the body is throwing all of that out. The body's finished with that information. The body is purging and healing of itself, in itself, healing itself of all of these distorted effects of the experiences of your life that have done you harm, that have falsified you, that have disconnected you, that have disassociated you from being you as you naturally are. And so the body doesn't want this. So what does the body do? it throws this stuff out. So when you're sitting, any nonsense thinking is going to come out, because nonsense thinking is not what the body needs. Any unresolved issues of your life will occur, whether it's from yesterday or eventually from the very early days of your life. All of this has to come out of the body. Why? Stay with me now. Why is this random thinking happening? It's not a problem. It's just that you get caught up in the thinking. You have nothing to learn from that thinking. It's coming out of you, so all the information that it is an expression of is already known as a felt sensation where it's held in the body. The body of you already knows that stuff. It's memory. So let it come out, and it flows. And there's all this thinking going on. Now, don't worry about the content of that thinking, but do notice and do be with the feelings that come with that thinking. The way in which you feel in and of yourself whilst that random thinking is going on. And you'll find you have all sorts of ways in which you do feel. When different thoughts are occurring, it will bring up different types. It will bring with it different feelings. And these feelings are your nostalgias. These feelings are your associations with the stories of these thoughts. Or even if you don't follow or understand or recognize any of the stories, if it's disturbing you, if you're feeling disturbance, whatever it is you're feeling, if you're feeling anything as those thoughts are arising, you will find yourself drawn to those thoughts, concerned by those thoughts, annoyed by those thoughts. But it's the feeling in it that gives them any power over you. Whereas when there's no feeling in a thought, then it doesn't relate to you at all. So you can easily see it for what it is, nothing more than an image that doesn't exist in its own right. And you just ignore it. It has no effect on you. But the thoughts that describe things or remind you of things that you have not resolved, it triggers the unresolved feelings, which are the attachments and the identifications with that thought, with that story of you. So letting that story come out of the body of you as it does naturally, not trying to do this. You can't do this. You don't know what stories you are locked in. You don't know what you're attached to. Only when that comes up, as if all this thinking going on inside of you, and then you feel how you are associated with these thoughts that are occurring simply because of the way in which you feel as they're coming out of you, as they're releasing from where they've originally been held as sensations in the body of you. Now, what is the real meaning of attachment? And what really is attaching us is identification. Those ideas, those thoughts, those concepts that we identify with, including the identification with any Buddhist concept, the identification with any Christian concept, with any Muslim concept, with any Hindu concept, with any yogi concept, any ideology, any thoughts that you have added to yourself have falsified you. You are not a thought. You are a living organism. You are not an idea. You are a living organism. And that living organism doesn't need ideas. It doesn't need any thinking other than for the purely mechanical purposes in life. But by introducing thinking in the attempt to try and understand yourself, you've completely disconnected from yourself in thoughts about yourself. When you're thinking about yourself, you are separate from that which you are thinking to, so you have no way to understand yourself if you can't even truly feel how it is in here to be you. You distort it through your thinking, And when you meditate, all that distortion starts to purge out of the body, because that's all it wants to do. But you have to sit physically still. There'll be a physical pain. And out of that physical pain, which is a sensation again in the body, the story of that pain, the reason for that pain will show itself eventually. And that's that pain expressing itself into the verbal or mental expressions of itself. But feeling it as how you begin to resolve your identification. It's actually not how you begin to, it's totally how you resolve your identification, your nostalgias, your feelings within all of that random thinking that's going on, till eventually, by feeling those feelings, they end up dissipating. And when the feelings that attach you or identify you with any thought process that's going on finally purge from your system, the thoughts that are produced by those feelings and held in repetition by your association with the thoughts and the feelings, those thoughts, once the feeling comes to an end, which is all you have to concern yourself with, is just feeling it to its end. Any thoughts that are associated with and produced by those feelings completely dissipate. They disappear because they never were there in the first place. They're just images. Images don't actually exist. So you realize there's no thought there. There's just images. But the important thing is allowing this random thinking to occur and staying with the feeling and the disturbances that it may be causing you to be having so much thought occurring. This is how, by feeling that, this is how you resolve all identifications with all the different things that you've built into your persona or the life from the story of your whole life, and all the traumas and all the effects that have been held in your body because you've separated from them through your reaction to them, through your suppression of them. All of these begin to erupt from the body, and feeling those produces also the thoughts that are associated with those, that come from those. So don't interfere with this natural healing process, because where that will leave you is less and less and less identified with all of these ideas about you, until these don't mean anything to you anymore, because they only mean something to you due to the way they make you feel. When they no longer make you feel that way, or they are no longer involved with the feeling of you, because you resolve that pain, you've resolved that nostalgia, you resolved that distress, you've resolved that guilt, you resolved that anger, you resolved whatever it is that is bothering you, simply by feeling it in the body of you, not identifying it, not labeling it, just feeling whatever is there. And it will be, after a while, just a fairly continuous, similar state of sensation. And that's when it's really processing. When you're thinking and labeling and repetition of techniques to think and oppose those thoughts, to think about and oppose those thoughts is no longer there, then you can really go deep. And this is the depth of your meditation, when you simply allow the body to do it all. And that's all the body wants to do. Only the body can meditate, because only the body is in the present.
For you to get an ongoing benefit from what you've just listened to here, I really encourage you to download my meditation app, Undo app. In this app, you'll discover for yourself how to meditate in this natural way. I also am still running meditation retreats on a regular basis, and if you would like to find out more about those, I have a website which is quietretreats.co. Thanks for joining me today. If this talk resonated with you or helped you in any way at all,
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the talk with your friends so that they can get the benefit as well. Okay, bye for now.